Tracy coming to you live from New Hampshire Writers Project headquarters. And I am here today with Joni B. Cole, who is a writer and author of 7 books. How are you, Joni?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm glad you could join me because I know we want to do a little preview of your workshop coming up at the 603 Writers Conference on June 14th. And this is just a great opportunity for people who might not be familiar with you or your books or your work to get a sense of what you'll be offering and how they can benefit. So I think before we jump into it, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself as a writer and author so people can get to know you.
All right. So I, as you mentioned, have 7 books that I wrote. Right now, and the last 3 books have been focused on personal essays. I love, love, love that genre. I hope to meet a lot of personal essayists at the conference. And I also am a longtime writing instructor, creative writing instructor. So I've done workshops forever through my own Writers Center in White River Junction, and which is now almost all virtual, and at conferences, at Dartmouth, at places all over the country. So I love, love, love working with writers.
Awesome. Well, I think they're going to be loving working with you at the 603. So we appreciate that. But before we get into what you're offering at the workshop, tell us a little bit more about this Party Like It's 2044. It sounds kind of like a modern Prince song. What's this book all about that you have coming out?
Yeah. It's a collection of personal essays. Party Like It's 2044 is, I guess, what we refer to as the title essay. It's somewhere in the middle of the book, but I think you choose a title essay based on if there is a single thematic essence that flows through a collection, that particular essay might capture that essence of what a lot of them have as an underlying theme. But it's a collection of personal essays, and it gets lots of different descriptions. Some people call it a humor collection, which isn't my preferred way to describe it, but I'm flattered. And, I do kind of have a funny stream of consciousness. I think of it as a literary collection. A lot of people call it that. But the ultimate goal, particularly being a writing teacher, but also someone who wants to write something that has both personal meaning, but also universal takeaways, was to write a book where the essays are really, really engaging. So that is that humor element, but have a very thought-provoking resonance and takeaway. So it is a collection of about 30 essays that I hope do just that. It's a weirdo book of essays too, in that there is not a singular theme necessarily. Like a lot of essay collections will have one theme, like motherhood as the tying factor. Mine are all over the place. They also take many different forms. One is in the form of, many are in the form of traditional essays, but one is in the form of all Amazon reviews of that very book. One is, in the form of a letter written to somebody. So it also has weird different stylistic changes, but it was so meaningful to write and fun to write. And I'm really proud of it.
Well, and that leads us right into the workshop that you're going to be offering at the 603 Writers Conference, which is From Mundane to Meaningful, How to Craft Powerful Personal Essays. So can you tell us a little bit about what participants of your workshop can expect?
Sure, whether they're brand new to the craft of writing or whether they're seasoned authors and have already written essays, they are going to, I think, leave with, first of all, some words on the page, because we're going to use a prompt to generate a little bit of material. Also, whenever you talk about craft or some of the stuff related to writing, I feel it's very difficult to just talk about it in the abstract. Even if you have 10 minutes worth of writing in front of you, a lot of the things that we'll talk about definitely will apply more because you're kind of looking at them on your very own pages. We'll talk about the craft of essay writing. There's often a form that serves essay writing. There's ways to be very productive and generate story ideas. There's ways to make sure that that essay goes from being just a personal experience that might be very meaningful to you, but to having a bit of a universal meaning. So we'll talk about all that. So anything from sort of how to begin to lurch some words on the page, to how to shape and structure a piece so that it has power well beyond just for you or your family.
Well, and many writers wonder where to begin when turning a memory into an essay. And obviously, you've done that very well. What's one small tip or technique that helps unlock meaningful material, would you say?
It's weird. One of the things that is the most useful in helping to unlock meaningful material is to not worry about it in the first drafts. Because speaking anecdotally and for myself, often a funny situation will pop up in my mind, or a very sad situation, or whatever, a memory will burble up. And I have to trust that there's something there that will make it a good essay. And my stories are often kind of small. I don't mean size or word count wise, but I mean, we're not talking about the time I climbed Mount Everest, or the time, I lost this family member. Sometimes those are typical of really good essays, or even some of my stories do have a more dramatic effect. But any memory that seems to assert itself, that's worth exploring. But you don't need in those early drafts to worry about, but why is it meaningful? Or how will I turn this into a universally resonant piece? You just want to kind of unfold what happened. But it's in the writing process, in the discovery and the exploratory process of crafting essays, that you begin to see, oh, that's why it had such an impact for me. That's why it's asserting itself. That's how it shifted me. That's how it changed my mental landscape. That's how come I'm a little different from before that experience to after I lived it. So the first thing is to let go of any high expectations, that you're going to understand what this piece is about, just to begin to get it on the page. And that right there will get you through the first several drafts in a more pleasant and productive way. Then the story itself, the words on the page, will begin to assert themselves. Oh, I'm beginning to see now why this is meaningful, what this theme might be that's in that piece. But the beauty of just letting go and not worrying about all that is really the way to start crafting a meaningful personal story. Sometimes if we write too much to theme, this is the time I realized I had to go it all on my own because no one was there to help me in life. It's a terrible theme, but not to mention life philosophy. But if you start with a theme like that, or this is how much I love my children, or this is how much grief lingers, you're going to write to that theme, and it just will get tighter and more constricted, versus you write a story, a meaningful moment, if you will, and that theme will burble up from the inside out in a much more effective way. So even if you know your theme, try not to write towards it, but mostly just trust. You don't have to know why this piece is going to be meaningful or worthy to readers. You just unfold the anecdote and explore, and trust every draft will get you closer to that power that an essay ultimately has.
Nice. Well, I love what you said, meaningful moments. That just says it right there. That's just such a beautiful soundbite.
And while moments, we're not talking quite literally. Small experiences often serve as the most powerful essays. And our goal ultimately is to reveal the extraordinary in the ordinary in a weird way. But mostly just trust if some memory is asserting itself, there's a funny little incident or exchange or something more dramatic, there you go. That's a pretty good clue that this might make a good essay.
That makes sense. Well, and Joni, who is this class best suited for? Budding writers, advanced authors? Who would you say would benefit most from it?
Yeah. My brand, if you will, that sounds all markety, doesn't it? But is, you want to write, you come to my workshop. We meet every writer where they're at. So if you're a newbie and you're nervous as heck, you are so welcome in my workshops, and we meet you there. And in a weird way, we're all newbie writers, because at least for me, with all these experience teaching and all, when I start out to write an essay, I am as newbie as you can get. I need all the help with the head stuff and even the craft stuff. So newbies are so welcome in my workshops. But seasoned authors will absolutely get those nuances of craft, those things that might be more specific to writers who know more about the how to craft a powerful essay. So the other thing is, I really don't like ever separating, beginners, advanced, because I think we all learn from each other. And it's surprising to some of the seasoned authors how much the newer writers can inform our own writing process. And of course, vice versa. Seasoned writers always can teach newbies a few tricks of the trade. So I really like to mix it up. And it also evens the playing field, because I don't believe in hierarchies in terms of, oh, she's the writer in the group, he's the writer in the group. We're all just at the draft that we're at. We're all at the stage we're at. And those stages are never static, because I finish an essay, I'm just the greatest writer in the world. I go to start the next essay. I don't know what the heck I'm doing and have to trust the process. So we're always moving in and out of newbie and seasoned.
Yeah, and I agree what you said about learning from each other. I mean, I attended some of the writers' conferences back in the early 2000s when I started my writing career, and that's one of the things that I benefited from the most was learning from others, networking, learning, and just being inspired by others. So I'm glad that you said that because I think there's a lot to learn from someone just starting out as well as someone who's been doing it a while. And then when you look at the different generations too, there's a lot to learn from a younger audience and there's a lot to be learned from an
Really
older
good point.
audience.
Really
So,
good point. Yeah. So yeah, and really, if not at conferences, at workshops, where do we learn the craft of writing? You would think, well, is it high school English? But no, because high school English isn't a creative writing class.
right.
Even in MFA programs, it's remarkable how many people come to my workshops that are graduates of MFA programs, but never really got the craft of writing because at that point it's above them to teach that. But in high school, it's beneath them to teach. So workshops, conferences like the 603 conference are the ideal place to begin to acquire not just the craft, but the mentality, the community, what it really takes to be a writer that has some joy and discipline and skill to achieve whatever it is they want to write, whether it's essays or fiction or, a trade book for that matter, even.
I agree. So one thing that I want to ask you too, we've talked a little bit about the 603 conference and just the journey of joining, but what are you most looking forward to being part of this year's conference?
Well, always the community, because you would think I would be tired of being around writers. I mean, I teach often 2 workshops a day, 3 or 4 days a week, and I never tire of being around not just writers, but people working on manuscripts, people working on their writing, even if they don't know what that manuscript might be. Should it be a short form, longer form? It's just inspiring because what it immerses us in is the creative process and the beauty of the creative process. And on top of that, being in a community or in a workshop, it reminds us of the realities of the creative process. We don't always need to know what we're doing. We don't have to look at a first draft and shame it for not being a final draft. It reminds us that we're all in it together, that writing is a practice, that we can get to where we want to go. And we kind of feed off of each other's energy, and we also validate each other's experiences, the lows as well as the highs. So there's nothing, I think, more productive for writers at certain stages or times in their drafting process than being around other writers. So thank you for the opportunity to bring the writers together with a conference like this one.
Yeah, I agree. Writers are such a passionate bunch. And, at last year's conference, especially too, it was just so wonderful to see, people meeting new people and networking. And I know, writing can be a little bit of a lonely profession, and many people in the industry are introverts. So for them to, push out of their comfort zone and come to the conference and meet other people and get new ideas. That's one of the things I love about it too, in addition to all the wonderful new workshops and presenters you can meet and take and learn. Yeah, it's just a great day filled with lots of learning. You will be very tired at the end of the day. You will be enriched.
You'll be tired, but also inspired. I often say writing is a solitary undertaking, but it doesn't have to be a lonely one.
Right.
And the other thing is, one of the things that gets in our way often is we kind of keep our writing close to our chest. And I do this a lot in the early drafts because I'm supposed to be a good writer and I teach writing, But the more we give it air, the more we open it up to feedback, and feedback meaning people looking at it with appreciation as much as constructive commentary, the more it animates the process, excites us about our work. Even in a rough draft, if somebody's talking about the nascent idea in there, that will get us inspired to do another draft. So coming together as a community is really something that can energize our writing life, and it can get us past some of the things that get in the way, that happen between our own ears when we get a little bit too tight-fisted with our writing. So there's times when you don't need it, but for the opportunity to go something like this, it'd be silly to squander it because it's just nothing but going to inform and energize your writing process.
Agree. Well said. So before I let you go, can you tell us how people can find out more about you as well as what you're working on next?
Sure. I'm working on another collection of essays. That is my sweet spot right now. So that's fun. I'm lucky I have a contract. And so, yeah, it's a follow-up. Well, I say a follow-up, but not. It's an independent book, but it'll be similar in terms of it's a collection like Party Like It's 2044. So people can find me at my author website, which is just my name, jonibcole.com. And thank you for putting it on the screen. But if you're interested in taking a workshop beyond the 603 conference, then I have my own writers center. Most of the classes are virtual, so people from all over the country take it, and that's the writers center wrj.com. WRJ meaning White River Junction, so the writers center wrj.com. But the two websites cross-pollinate, so you can just Google my name and pop comes up workshops and books and things like that. I love when people reach out, so please feel free.
Well, that's perfect, because I like it when someone can come to the conference and they can experience something new, but then it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
If it's, essay writing is something that they're passionate about, there's a path to develop that. So it's great that you offer that beyond the 603.
Because writing is a practice, and I have to thank you guys, because I can tell you that in my own workshops, I've gotten a lot of people that have continued from the 603 conference and then continued with my 6-week classes or my accountability classes, because it's a practice. And once you see the benefit of being in a community, whether it's one time in the 603 conference and that might be enough, or whether you want to feel like you kind of need that charge weekly, or at least for 6 weeks at a time or whatever, there's opportunities that extend beyond the 603 conference. And yet you get the opportunity to see the workshop instructors, or to see what it feels like to be in a really productive community like the 603 conference offers. So it's just such a great option for people to come to this conference and just be around all the people who are trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, only make it more fun and joyful and productive. So
exactly. Agree.
Yeah.
Joni, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with us today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope to see you at the 603 Writers Conference. Just get the information you need at nhwritersproject.org. All right, everyone, have a great day.